How's it going, YouTube? Coming to today with another video, and today, guys, what the brand deal is Striker. Now, Striker is my favorite deck of all time. I've been working with this deck ever since the Banlist just dropped to really make sure that it's prepared for the new format. I have two very cool lists that I'm going to show you, and I have two very competitively viable lists that I'm going to show you as well. There's a lot of brand new cards coming out of Darkwing Blast that are going to be fantastic for this deck, and I'm very excited to show you that. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over at Imperium Duelist, Dragon Shield, or Gem, definitely go ahead and do so, and I'm very excited to show you this video today because I do hope that this helps with deck building moving forward in the format. So without further ado, let's hop right into my first topic. And that's going to be talking about linkage. Linkage is something that gets brought up in conversation a lot. I get asked about this a lot, and I really want to just let everyone know that when November comes and we get linkage, you definitely have to have Reguluses on hand ready to go. I think that we're only going to play like one Regulus, double field spell, and terraforming. I'm not too sure in the ratio yet, but I definitely want to be playing Regulus linkage. I think this is really nice because linkage only locks you out of other monsters from your extra deck, so you can still summon a Regulus. The problem with Regulus before was that you had to open up the Ethereum package and an ace monster, and if you just opened up like the Regulus, then you just bricked really hard and it just really wasn't worth it. So I really do think that with linkage, it's going to be very good to be able to run these certain cards because of the fact that Regulus alone just really does add so much recursion with the field spell. It adds an Omni negate, and there's just so many benefits to be able to run this package in the deck, but we never really could because we didn't have the consistency of seeing both in your hand. So it's gonna be really nice to just go like terraforming chain linkage, right? Like that's gonna be pretty neat. So I'm excited for that. I think that linkage is gonna be very good in the deck. So definitely once Mavens drop, pick up 3 linkage. Before Mavens drops, make sure that you at least pick up 2 Regulus. They're only like $30 right now, so I think it's a pretty solid pickup at the moment because we already seen where they can be with price, especially when they're back up toward like 80. So as of right now, I would say that they're in a pretty good spot. So if a lot of people start catching on to this with linkage, you really want to make sure that you have yours early rather than later. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually going to be diving right into one of my lists here. It's going to be Spellbook Striker. This is something that I've talked about for a while now. I think that it's a really cool concept, playing with GGYGO, especially having the extra stun aspect in the deck. So I do have 2 main deck copies of Mystic Mine. I'm not playing like Metaverse or anything. Definitely having GGYGO is nice. That's why I play like the Offerings to the Doom, and then we play the Fate as well, because if anything tries to like swing over the GGYGO, you have something that can go ahead and counter that. Also having things like Droplet is really cool too, for 2 reasons. One is that if your opponent has a monster on their board when you have the GGYGO and you want to get out from your own GGYGO, whether it be the multi-roll Ares Zero or your own Droplet sending it off the board, that's a really cool way to out your own GGYGO. Or if your opponent's monster is swinging into GGYGO, you can use Droplet to then go ahead and half the attack of the monster. So there's a lot of different ways you can go ahead and protect the GGYGO in the list. I am playing the Soul's Illusion package here. I think that is still really smart, especially with cards like Spellbook of the Master, because that does require you to have a spellcaster on the board. And then you can always get rid of your excess cards that are from the Spellbook package, or you can go ahead and get rid of your extra striker cards, then get free draws into your other engines as well, which I think is still very smart. And then also having the availability to be able to summon Dark fairly easily, because you can go ahead and special summon Souls, get some free draws, and then you can go ahead and make Kagari and add back like a Widow Anchor that you ditched, or like a Shark Cannon, which is a really cool way to be up in card advantage really quickly. That's why I really like Souls back in my 60 card pile list, is because I feel like it really does complement Striker very well, especially the availability just to make a very quick Dark. Dark is just such an impactful monster ever since it dropped, especially now against Tearlament. I definitely recommend that you have that card in your extra deck alongside Lina. Lina and Dark are just 2 cards that should never leave your extra deck in Striker. A lot of people ask me how I felt about Hulk getting banned for Striker. I never played Hulk. I never liked playing Hulk in Striker. I'd rather just play Selene with the Charmers. I think that's equally just fine. Then you're also playing the Souls, so you have something to reborn out of the graveyard too, which is really nice as well. We are playing the lineup of 1 Fate, 1 Spellbook of the Master, 1 Judgment, 1 Knowledge, 3 Secrets. I think that's more than enough. I think that you don't really need more than just that. Other than that, in the extra deck, we just see the Garura for the Super Poly, because I feel like every list that I'm going to be playing for Striker is probably just going to be on Super Poly. That card is just insane. With Garura, it's just a really good way to counter any single deck in the format right now. I think that it's really strong and needs to be in your list. Even if it's just in the side, it needs to be in your list. So talking about my 60 card pile, I did try to recreate it here, which I think is pretty cool with Fusion Destiny at 3. I am main decking a copy of Necro Valley for the Demise of the Lands and the Metaverse. If you're playing against Tearlament, it's very strong to have, something that's very good. I know that we have like the DPE and that can conflict, but at the same point, if you have a card that just destroys your opponent's deck, then it's worth leaving it on the board versus just having something like a DPE, because especially if you're playing against Tearlament, DP is pretty lackluster, it's pretty bad, so it's something that you may not want. So it's definitely going to be a matter of what you really want to go for in the deck at the time. You're playing a lot of hand traps too, and I feel like this is really what helped me when I was playing with a 60 card list the first time around. I'm not playing Small World either. I don't really feel like it's needed, but you can play it if you wanted to. Definitely not a bad thing. But at the same point, I think that this list is actually really interesting. Adding more copies of Necro Valley in case you are versing the tier limit deck. We do see the summon limit in the sideboard. It probably could just be different dimension ground, to be completely honest with you. I think that that card's just inherently better. I do think that there is a lot of promise to playing cards like summon limit still. I think summon limit is just a very good card. But other than that, I do like playing the Brave Engine as well still, because it does get you spell count very quickly. You have another way to bounce a card off the board. You get that Omni negation on the board as well. So if you have like Enchantress plus Fusion Destiny or what have you, it's just a really solid setup, especially behind hand traps. I think that there is a lot of promise behind this build, especially because I've already seen results with a 60 card list in the past. I think that this is going to be no different. If I did want to play Small Worlds, I might just cut like a copy of mine. I might cut the Souls engine down to like 1-1. I probably would still want to keep it at 2-2, so I'd have to play around with like the ratios and like what I'd want to cut and what I'd want to keep, but it's just another cool option for you here in the deck. But the next thing I want to talk about is going to be my first list that I think is going to be very competitively viable. And it's not going to be something that is like crazy goo or anything, but I think that this is going to be very consistent. I think this is going to be a very solid option. We have Ash, Crow, Nibiru, Imperm, you're playing Mine. You have 2 Pot of Prosperity. Make sure that you can see an Ace or Fusion Destiny, which I think is very important, especially in a deck like this, to really be able to see the strong power cards turn 1. Especially Prosperity works really well with sideboard cards too. So we have cards like Fusion Destiny in the deck, again, getting us that draw on the follow-up, alongside a lot of hand traps and Super Poly. I think this is just a really solid 40 card striker list that you can go and do very well with at a tournament. We do see Pinkertops on the side. Bell is in a lot of my sides right now because we main deck Crow. The next list is going to be for Darkwing Blast, like post this set exclusively. This is going to be beforehand, so this is something that I think is really nice to look at and really being able to make a determination of where the format's going and really be able to counter what's coming. I'm going to be making a full-on meta guide soon because I feel like I have a really good idea at what's ahead right now in the format. So I'm going to be making that video, and I hope that you enjoy that as well, because there's going to be a lot of work put into that. But I do want to show you the post-Darkwing Blast list here, and that's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very different. So we do see Phantasme in the main deck. This is something that I've done before, and it worked out pretty well. I think this is particularly smart because there's a lot of decks right now that are going IP Elf. With that, you get a free draw 3 and then pitch 2 back to your deck. And I think that's really strong in its own regard. But not only just that, but we are siding the Bisted cards because of the fact that we are going to be playing against some tier limit, and that's going to be probably the better deck in the format. I don't want to main deck those cards because I don't feel like that it's worth to main at the moment, because if you play against like Sprite or something different, that it's not as strong as it could be. And plus, we're already main decking so many hand traps and Crow that you don't necessarily have to main them. But I also really like the fact that like the one Bisted card allows you to go ahead and search Phantasme. So it's also pretty cool. I think that Phantasme is also really neat against tier limit, which is already like a pretty rough matchup because of the fact that you can protect yourself from getting Soliaked, Perlurinoed, like the pop. You can protect yourself from getting Kaleido Hearted. So there's a lot of different things that I feel like Phantasme adds to the deck that I think is really necessary, especially getting to the cards that you want to see. Also, having the Fenrir in the deck, I ended up going with 1 Pinkertops, 2 Fenrir instead of the just 3 Fenrir, or like the 3 Fenrir, 1 Pinkertops, because I don't really want to have that many hard going second cards in the deck. I feel like that's never really done well for me in any sense, is that you always want to make sure that you can play first. You don't have to like side out 15 cards just to be able to go first. So this is where I feel like this is actually really strong, because Fenrir alone also just allows you to free summon itself turn 1 without your opponent controlling anything, which is pretty cool. Fenrir is just another interruption that I think is really good in the format coming up too. And then again, being able to side those Bisted cards for going second, and then having like the Phantasme trying to draw into them, then having cards like Mystic Mine and Super Poly, I feel like this is going to be a very solid list going into the next format. And the extra deck, again, we just see Dark, we see the lineup, we see the access code, and then we also see Zero Boros. I think that card's still very good in Striker. I've ran it before, I'll run it again. It's just a really strong card overall, especially with a lot of the banishes that do happen. That card does get pretty huge. Main decking Veiler and Imperm I feel like are very important right now too. You don't really see Ash in most of my list. I don't really feel like Ash is that worth it right now because it's just like really low impact, but Veiler or Imperm on Kit Kalos is kind of insane. It's just something where your opponent really wants that kit to resolve because they want to be able to free summon, they want to be able to add or dump, they want to be able to do so much with that Kit Kalos. So if you have the Veiler or the Imperm, I feel like that really does go a long way. And I will be making a very long Where to Hand Trap for the new format, so look out for that too. I'm going to be posting a lot because there's a lot of different content that I have for you, especially with the new format, and I hope that you're excited for that. I hope that you're ready for that. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't already joined my Discord, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, they're all down in the description below. And if you'd like a coaching session over on Medify, definitely go ahead and do so. And if you have any questions, feel free to PM me on Discord. I hope that everyone has a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you.